Hi, I'm Rebecca Bradley. This is the Virtual Crime Book Club. It is Monday, the 3rd of April, 2023. We are discussing The Invisible by Peter Papathanasiou. Sorry, Peter, if that is really bad. I do apologise. Spoilers will be discussed. So if you're watching this as a video and not sitting here with us, you might want to finish the book before continuing. So, usual questions first. Did you enjoy the book?
Yes, very much.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Did anybody not enjoy the book?
Ooh.
Right, so we've got a couple of in the middles from Karen and Craig. So we'll go with the enjoyed the book. So Jane, do you want to start us off? You sounded quite positive about it.
Well, I was, and I didn't expect to be, because I almost didn't read it, because I looked at the reviews on Amazon and I thought, oh dear, this is going to be a bit of a letdown, because we enjoyed, well, I loved the stoning, and this was just, I thought, and then by chance I came across a copy in the library, and I thought, well, I've got no excuse. Borrow the book, read it. And I'm so glad I did. I can see why why it got some of the negative reviews, because I think people didn't like the fact that or the things that what I really loved about it was not why they were reading the book, and it was, I loved it for the sense of place and the history that it gave, and all the background information. I absolutely loved it for that, and just I thought it was a really good read as well. But I could see that if you just wanted essentially a whodunit, or that like that, I could see that it possibly wouldn't be for you. But as I say, I absolutely loved it, and I think, as I say, it was the very strong sense of place. But then I love Greece, so it was kind of like, I think, and that was northern Greece was not an area that I'm familiar with, and as I say, I absolutely love the descriptions. And I have to say, it did bring a smile to my face, because we always, I mean, I've been to Australia and I love Australia as well, but it's full of creepy crawlies, and how many venomous snakes have you got? And I thought it was just hilarious, the fact that Manolis actually got bitten in Greece by a snake. I thought that was hilarious, but yeah, so that's just some of the things that I liked about it.
I think it's one of Peter's strong suits, the way that he writes about place. So Lorraine, when you came in before we started recording, we're talking about how much you enjoyed it. What was it that you liked about it?
Well, I have to agree with everything that Jane said. I mean, the sense of place, I feel like I'm at a place that I was totally familiar with halfway through the book. I knew it like the back of my hand. He's got that great way of being able to set a scene. And it's an area that I never even knew existed. And it was really interesting. So I got the map out and sorted it all out. So, and to think it's an area where his family came from. So, they always say, write what you know about. So he really put that to paper and made it great. And it had so many different twists in it that I wasn't expecting. And I thought that's what was good. Yes, it wasn't a real classic whodunit, but gee, it was good. I would recommend this highly. Absolutely. Good on you, Peter.
Okay, anybody else want to say anything about why they enjoyed it before we move on to anybody who didn't love it?
I've also enjoyed it. I agree with Jenny and Lorraine. It's really the sense of place and the way it describes things. I actually went to Google Maps, and I also looked at the island and everything. Yeah, because I didn't know it existed. I've been to Greece several times, but not to the north. So so I like that. But it was really a slow burn. So yeah, if you really want like a page turner, this is probably not the right book. But I did enjoy it. I read it a bit slower than I usually read a crime novel. But yeah, it was good.
I think that's interesting that two of the group have actually gone to look at maps of the area because that sense of place has drawn the interest so much. So that's something that hasn't usually happened with books that we've read. So that's interesting. Craig or Karen, what was it that made you undecided about the book?
For me, I so wanted to love this book. I adored the stoning. I absolutely loved it, and I proposed this book because I was like, I want to read this. I want to read this, and I absolutely agree. The sense of description is fabulous, and you really do feel you're there. And there was three of us who went and looked at the map to look at the region. Florina, I didn't actually find the village, but I found all the regions, the lakes, and all that, and it was really good, that sort of thing. However, I found that the beginning was really quick, and I found myself reading really quickly. We was in Australia, we was in a basement, there was the shooting of the child, then we was on a plane bouncing around, and then we was in a car bouncing around, and it seemed to be very quick, and I had to slow myself down reading it because I was like going 100 miles an hour. But I suppose I suppose it's a bit unfair saying I did enjoy it. I didn't love it as much as the stoning. I suppose that's what it is, and it jumped a bit, and I think Vera's right. It wasn't a classic whodunit sort of touch, and it was. I mean, I read it on my Kindle, and I was up to 80% thinking, what's going on? I mean, I know we're looking for Lefty, but what's going on? Where are we? And it wasn't really until that last bit I was like, oh my God, it's all coming together sort of touch, But it took such a long time to get there. But I enjoyed the descriptive elements and the village and the people, the descriptions of the people. I mean, I absolutely knew everyone in that village. I really felt I knew everyone in that village. But I just didn't love it as much as I love the stoning. Maybe I like the stoning too much.
Yeah. Karen, have you got anything different? Was there anything different about it?
No, I suppose I did find it quite slow, and as much as I like the description, I did find it quite what I would call quite wordy. So, there was a lot of description, which perhaps doesn't suit me. That's fine. Everybody's different on that. And as much as you knew about the characters in the village and everything, nobody endeared themselves to me, I suppose, is part of it. And, I did find it sort of, it is a little bit slow, I think. And that is just a different type of book, though. So I didn't dislike it, but it's not one of my favourites.
Yeah. So after reading the stoning, because this month was we were reading a sequel to a book we'd already read, which was the stoning, and unusually, this is actually the 3-year anniversary of the book club, and I forgot to get some alcohol, which I said in my email. We actually didn't read the stoning that long ago. It was only about 3-4 months ago. So we can all remember the book quite well. How well do you think Manolis transplanted from Australia to Greece?
Well, I think he transplanted himself there really well. He bit of a fish out of the water because he'd lost a lot of his Greekness, so to speak. But he soon found it, and I just felt that I understand now someone with another heritage, that's only like a generation away, can connect. I mean, there was people he knew. I mean, Stavros and Lefty were friends of his from his youth, so it was really like he was just coming back home after a while. And of course I could taste some of that beautiful food. Those vegetarian dishes really got me going. So I had to go out and buy some eggplants the other day. And or what do you call them? Aubergines. Aubergines. Yeah.
Aubergines.
So I had to go out and buy some of those the other day, ready for some moussaka. But no, I felt like he transported it really well. I'm really interested to see where he goes. Manolis goes next time. Where's he going to go?
Yes. Where does he call home now? What is he?
Yes.
going to do?
Yes. Exactly.
Where would you like to see him go next?
Australia. Back to
Suburban
Australia.
Sydney.
You want him to go back to Australia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is probably very much inspired in Peter's life,
Yeah.
because his family is from this area and he was adopted as a child, and he still has family in this area, from what I could read in his note in the book. But at the same time, he grew up in Australia, and I found this description of the outback and the stoning also very interesting. I liked it a lot, but also okay, because I know Greece better than I know Australia. So at the end, for me, was more interesting even to read about Australia. So yeah, I think he should go back to Australia and go to one of these very remote places, and with all these very tragic characters, and yeah.
What did you take away from the depictions of northern Greece? Do you think they were a realistic depiction or more artistic license? Because as Westerners, we tend to see pictures on the television of little white houses and blue seas and blue
Sky.
Sky.
what's the thing on top of a house? A roof. White and blue houses and all the pretty kind of locations, don't we? We don't get to see anything other than the sorry, I've got brain fog today. Anything other than the holidaymaker experience.
Yeah.
I think that was what I liked about it, because I say I've been to Greece on a number of occasions, but obviously always as a tourist and whatever. So I've only ever been to the islands. So it was. And actually, no, I have been on mainland Greece once. I just got that one, but as I say, it was to me. But they've always been around tourist destinations, and this I thought that because it wasn't a tourist destination, I thought that really, as I say, was very, very interesting for me, and I did like the fact that I mean, he must be going to do another book, I would imagine, because there were a few loose, sort of like hooks there that you kind of think, well, I wonder whether he's going to pick up on the fact that he's got this cousin, for example, his aunt's child that could be working in that area. So is that going to be picked up? The fact that he's got this sort of like, he's got this attraction to Rose, is that going to be picked up? And how intrigued to see, because as I say, he's an Australian police officer. How on earth is all this going to be pulled together? So I say it'd be quite an intriguing. The third book will be on my list to read when it comes out, as I'm sure there will be a third book.
Yes.
I personally feel that I've let the side down a little bit, excuse me, because I didn't consult a map at all, having read the book. I'm also terrified of visiting that area of Greece, because it seems if you turn left, there's bears. If you turn right, there's snakes.
Yes.
But I found the whole thing about the children in the war to be absolutely fascinating, and like so many, in fact pretty much everybody has said today, the sense of place is remarkable, and I almost felt like I could direct somebody to the post office having read it. I just felt that the story never really took off for me, and I was so involved with the place and all these elements of the area, and I'd be reading and suddenly think to myself, right, now where are we in the story again? And I just wanted the storyline itself to be a little stronger.
Yeah, I understand that. as a writer myself, I don't know how people like Peter do this sense of place so well, because it is a real art to bring it to life as well as he does, that make people, I mean, 3 of you have looked on Google Maps. You have become that invested in the area. So yes, I just think it's a real art. But it's like it was stuck in time as well, with the swastikas on the walls, and everything. How did you feel when reading that? Is that something that we think is still there?
I imagine the Greeks have very long memories for the war, because there was so much atrocious things that happened. I think Greeks love revenge and vendettas. So I'm sure they'll be storing all these things up, keeping them alive.
Yeah.
And another thing that was interesting about the story is that many of the characters were elderly, very elderly. And because the village was so remote, the younger people, younger meaning under maybe age 70, had phones, but there didn't seem to be a lot of reliance on electronics. Did they listen to the radio, have TV? So it was a strong sense of place that was so isolated. And this lack of self-awareness about the war and how people felt about it, they were really stuck in time.
Yes.
And that was really quite interesting. And as to the food, although he was vegan or vegetarian and did talk a lot about the food, at times he really made the meat sound good. When they were roasting the animal, oh my gosh. And it was sort of like, and he's a vegetarian, so he was a very very good writer in terms of description.
Yeah. As far as Lefty goes, he was the missing person that Manolis was searching for. Did you feel, even though he wasn't there, that you got to know him?
There were lots of contradictions, right? So people had totally different ideas. So at the end, we weren't sure if he was really a con man, or a woman, in this case, a con man, or if he was in fact a nice guy that just took advantage of some situations. So yeah, it was difficult to know him. It was obviously someone that adapted and changed depending on where he was and with whom he was dealing. So it depended with whom we would talk. It was obviously someone that just adapted to the situation and took advantage of the situation.
But they were part of the story. They weren't left as simply a device for Manolis to be there.
No. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Which characters did you connect with? Because obviously Ellen mentioned that they were quite elderly and they were isolated. So did you have any particular favourites? Did any of them make you smile? Or
I like the description. Having married into a Greek family myself, be it Cypriot family, and I can understand the Civil War thing, because in Cyprus it's the invasion and it's constant. So I really understood that. But the characters, I liked a few of them. I liked Rose. I liked the description. It was Yanis, the police officer, who's always had a a tab on the go and was just, you know, drinking coffee. And I mean, it was wonderful. I mean, you're going to be a police officer, be that police officer, you know. I quite like that. But the villagers, because there was always that suspicion hanging over the villagers. I never really connected with individually any of them because there was all that slight suspicion. Stelios,
Yes.
it was his friend from the other village. I liked him.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, I think that's what, you know, I couldn't really connect with the people. I thought, I don't know about you, but yes, Rose, I liked Rose, and even though I did sort of suspect her there, and I think that was the writer's skill to make us do that. But yeah, the police officer with his, you know, ciggy in his mouth and his coffee was rather interesting. But yes, I thought it was, and Angela and Anna, they were interesting people. But yeah, so but like older people, etc. I mean, you know, they were all sort of watching one another. It was like they were, you know, they had such inbuilt suspicion that it just they couldn't move on beyond that. So no one trusted anyone. And of course, you know, Lefty just sort of whizzed around all over everybody and had his foot in many places, and he was came across to me as, you know, as a bit of a con merchant, you know, so and a sleight of hand type of person. Was he there or wasn't he, you know? And living off the grid made it like that for him. So you know, I kind of liked Lefty, even though he was pretty bad. But you know, I mean, Rose was the one I liked, and those bears, my God. But anyway, we're not going to go into those. We'll go into, they're not really a person. So yeah, the older people, I just felt that I just couldn't connect with them. I think it wasn't. I think I connected more with Manolis than anybody else, you know. And I felt like I could place myself in his shoes and sort of think, well, you know, what's going on? What's going on? Anyway, that's my bit.
I actually liked Zayn, the Syrian refugee. I thought that was well drawn, and say he was a very sympathetic character, doing the best he could with, you know, in a difficult situation for him as a bit of an outsider to the village, and yeah, and I liked him. But again, part of me, I liked him, but initially thought, could he have something to do with this, you know? But yeah, turned out he was a red herring.
Yeah.
Was he the guy with the snakes?
Yes, where he was the one that Manolis followed out to the island, and initially, and then but he helped him after Manolis got bitten. But
Yes.
and he said he said very dismissively, "Oh, that hasn't got any venom. That you're okay. That just a bite."
Yeah.
and I think I'd have been freaking out.
Yes, I thought that was him.
Yeah.
How old do we think Manolis is? It was probably mentioned in the first book.
I think
it's mid-40s, they said, didn't he?
Yes,
something. Yeah.
Because when he was
It says here somewhere.
thinking about Rose, it was like a mid-40s.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
mid-20s.
I missed that bit then. Were you surprised by the ending?
Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that.
Yeah, I thought it was quite a clever twist, because we'd already been alerted to the fact of these sworn virgins, like Angela. So we'd been alerted to that, but I don't think any of us had really. Well, I mean, I certainly didn't think. Oh, I wonder if that would be, you know. So yes, I thought that was really, really well. You know, as I say, nice little twist.
Even to the point of he rescued Lefty from the cellar of Angelo.
Yeah.
And even at that point, I was completely taken with Lefty's description and what's going on, and Hannah and Angelo were bad, and should be arrested. And then it all turned, and it was like, oh, maybe not, you
Yeah.
know. And
Makes you wonder what will have, you know, happened to Angelo and Anna, because it turns out that all right, they basically held Lefty against his will, but he turned out to be not a particularly savoury character. And what ultimately what they were trying to do was look after these disabled adults.
yeah.
But
Yeah, but they were keeping them underground,
yeah.
and so I don't think they were like nice persons.
Mm.
But I read about these sworn versions; they did exist.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's just strange.
That's grim.
I
I
learned a
don't-
lot from this. I learned a lot from this novel about things I didn't even know existed.
Yeah,
And that's what I
absolutely.
really liked. Yeah.
I must say it's given me a slight interest in the Civil War, and because it wasn't that long ago, and so I might go and have a little research and have a little read up about that, just to generally understand it a little better.
What was Lefty saving his money for? So much happened right at the end, and I didn't have a chance, but I wanted to go back and read the last 40 pages, because I don't know if I really understood what was going on. And why did he save the 100,000 euros? What was he planning on doing with that money?
I
And
had
assume that was
exactly
just
that question, because it was living in this horrible hut without any condition, and at the same time he had this money that was coming from like arms dealing or contraband, all of this very shady business with the Albanians or some of the Balkans. And at the same time, I think what I understood is that people that have these disabled children, like in Albania and other countries, and they were just ashamed of having these children, they would just like pay Lefty for him to take them. That's what I understood. And then Anna and Angelo will just raise these children with disabilities. So he had money from that also. But it's true, why he was saving the money? Why didn't he live in like in a better place?
And he borrowed all the money from the other villagers, and they really didn't like him. And it didn't seem he really had a need for the money. And I don't know if I had missed something about that.
But
he was
had that at that point. Maybe he needed at that point, because this was already some years ago, and I don't know. The criminals make lots of easy money, but they seem to spend it also. Yeah, but I also did not understand why he was saving the 100,000 euros.
He had an unknown plan. What was he going to spend it on? Probably escape, because you couldn't spend it on anything much there. So, but he was going to rip everybody off. So,
how old was Lefty? I got the impression he was really elderly, and no, because he was a friend of the Manolis's family and his father.
Didn't Manolis say
so,
they were both at school together and they'd both been stopped from being left-handed by beating?
Yeah.
And he was at school, so he was only in his 40s or 50s.
But Lefty had gone back to being left-handed, whereas Manolis had stayed right-handed.
But they were at school together, so they were contemporaries. Oh, then I missed that.
Were they?
I thought Lefty was a friend of his father's, Constantine's, and he was supposed to give him the prayer beads, and so I thought he was a lot older than apparently he was, and that's what I couldn't figure out, how this elderly man was, and where was he all of this time?
Sorry, that's my mistake. My note says they were both left-handed as kids, but traumatized by parents in an attempt to make them right-handed. It didn't say it happened at the same time. So they're not. No, I don't know what the age she was.
But then the nurse or the hospital administrator that says, "Oh, but I was at school with her." So, and I was thinking, well, he can't be 90. He can't. Maybe he's 70. Maybe he's 60. I don't. It was the big mystery to me was, where was Lefty? And I wasn't really sure I understood where he had been and where he was going and what he was doing. Did I miss something? Well, I did miss something because I don't understand.
I think they explained the relationship between Lefty and Manolis' father at the beginning. I'm actually looking for it. I don't think he was as old as Manolis' father, but I don't think he was young. I don't think he was like mid-40s. I think he was older.
Yeah, the nurse. It was an elderly matron in. Yes, so the nurse was elderly, and she refers to going to the to school together with Lefty when Lefty was left the area. So presumably that means he is also elderly, but what that means in that context, I would guess late 50s, 60s. Does that make kind of, and that that might actually work, sort of like 60ish, in their 60s, because do we know how old Manolis's father was? Because if Manolis is in his 40s, I would guess that his father also would have been in 60s, 70s, possibly.
See, this was really hard for me because I didn't know anything about the history. I didn't realize the Civil War was right after World War II. And then I should have paid more attention because when Constantine leaves Australia, I thought he had lived through part of that Civil War. And so I thought he was older. And I'm going to have to go back and look at that. And why did Lefty become a transgender, for want of a better word? Why was he one of the? I didn't think he fell in the same grouping as Angelo.
Well, if he'd had a child, he wouldn't have been a sworn virgin. So yeah, you're right. He couldn't have been part of the same group as Angelo.
So
yeah, I didn't understand that. Also, I didn't see the need for him to be a woman. Okay, he gave birth to a disabled child, but it could have been the father of the disabled child. Yeah, for me, that was a weird twist for him to be a woman.
Well,
I did not understand exactly what he wanted with this.
Maybe he just chose to live as a woman because in his chosen profession, which appears to have been sort of like a con merchant, maybe it was just easier to appear as a man rather than a woman.
Yeah, you're probably right, because if you are dealing with the Balkan men and all of this, they will not respect a woman at all.
Yeah.
There is no respect for a woman, so we could never deal with them, and he was dealing arms and contraband and things like that. So probably he needed to be a man to be able to pursue this career as a criminal. Yeah, that's probably a better justification than the sworn version, because there is no reason for him to be one.
So
he was very sleight of hand, Lefty. So it because of that, it would to me it didn't seem that unusual for him to suddenly don women's clothing and be like that. So then it worked for me. I thought, that's what it is. It's better for him to be seen as a male as opposed to a female in order to get around and do the things and work in the men's business, so to speak, because the women were so much further down the pecking scale. So it didn't, it was a big twist, but, or something I didn't see coming, but it wasn't something I didn't disbelieve.
So was everybody satisfied with the ending, even if they were surprised?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
there's a little bit of confusion.
I liked it because I say that it left sufficient sort of like sufficient bits that could be picked up in a subsequent book.
Yeah.
So there was some nice little loose, slightly, but not so loose that you thought, well, hang on a second, the book's not, the story's not complete. It was I did like the ending. Because we've got, it's left with he's sort of found the answer, but he's on his way back to Australia, and we don't quite know what he's going to do with the other things that he's acquired in his time in Greece, like this potential attachment with Rose and a potential cousin that he never knew of. So I'd say that was good.
And he's even more traumatized because now
Well, yes.
he was the one that released Lefty, and Lefty escaped. So
Yeah.
It was a realistic and sort of unbook-like in that it didn't wrap up everything, and that's sort of the continuum of life. It's sort of like there's lots of unanswered questions and and unresolved issues, and a lot of facts that we don't know, that he doesn't know. So it was an interesting book. I may have been lulled in by those warm, sunny afternoons. It was a very languid book. It took on the characteristics of the place and time in the same way, in that it just kind of meandered down, and then it was at the end, I was like, what did that really happen? Lefty was a woman, this happened, that happened. Oh my gosh.
I think you have to feel a bit sorry for Manolis though, because he's essentially suffering from PTSD, and he goes to essentially to Greece to recover. And if he'd just been, if he just had if he hadn't have had any of this with Lefty, but basically just maybe helped his old friend do up a house, he'd have had an absolute blissful time and would have probably gone back feeling ever so much better and almost fully recovered from his PTSD. Whereas in fact now he's probably almost like back to square one.
Yeah. So who is going to go on and read book 3?
Oh, definitely.
I need to go back and read
Maybe.
Mourning because I've not read that.
So what I've picked up from this meeting and the book is that actually the group reading it have got quite a lot from it, whether that's food, place, history, characters. There's something that everybody has taken away from it.
It was rich.
Yes,
It's very rich.
it's one of the books that actually has given more than most of the books, as just rather than just to read. It seems to have given a lot.
He's such a readable author. It may not have been the greatest crime novel that I've ever read, but I'm definitely invested in whatever he writes next, and will be all over it.
No pressure for poor Peter now.
So does anybody else have anything they want to say about The Invisible?
I thought it was great that he found out about his aunt. So that was one thing that was resolved, and he's got the Greek part that he needed to find out about. He's found out, but opened up a whole can of worms, which is obviously going to come around in further novels. But I really want to see him back in suburbia in suburbia, I think, probably in Melbourne, amongst the because Melbourne has the largest Greek population outside of Greece. So I'd really like to see him somewhere in suburban Melbourne doing something amongst the Greeks there and finding out more about other people. So that's your next one, Peter. And but there's still got to be some connections with what's happened over there in the home of your of his forebears. But yeah, so you know, no pressure on Peter to produce a fabulous another third novel.
None at all.
I thought it was very sad that his aunt had to, she felt the need to give away her child, her boy, just because she was not married and the boy was mixed race. So I thought this was very sad, and it was probably because they were like this very isolated place where convention is still very important, and yeah, because it would have been quite recent. So that was a bit sad.
Yeah.
No, big tick.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.